for Sloan. Lomax with an oh, what have we just seen?
G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Stu, that's Dill, and we're the Fantasy Bros. We're excited to announce that we've partnered with GameDay Squad this NRL season to bring you all you need to know for GDS Rugby League in 2025. Dill, at time of the recording, the all-important week 3 of the trials have just kicked off. Fingers crossed, we can answer plenty of questions through these next few games, but also hopefully that we can avoid some more long-term injuries, something that we weren't quite able to do during the week, particularly at Souths and Cronulla training.
Yeah, g'day Stu, g'day viewers and listeners. Some massive news, some injury news out of South Sydney and Cronulla as well, which obviously might change up a few coaches' plans come round 0, certainly to have an impact there. It'll have an impact as well in some of our rankings today, in today's shows, the back rankings. Talking about rankings, this is our third pre-season positional rankings show for GameDay Squad. If you haven't had a chance yet, make sure you jump back on our YouTube and Spotify and Apple podcast. Check out the top 10 forwards and the top 10 halves before then finishing off this show. Make sure as well you hit that subscribe button because we will be coming to you live throughout the season every Wednesday night to discuss the all-important start sits of the week, as well as revealing who Stu and I will be starting in our champion squads. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to all of our other socials. So we've already mentioned YouTube and Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We're also on TikTok and Instagram. That is at FantasyBros AU. We'll have plenty of content as well as everyone's favorite pack and card giveaways throughout the season.
Yeah, mate, plenty of information about some Unreal packs to be won pretty shortly. But just in case you haven't signed up to GameDay Squad yet, there is still time. You certainly can still do that. And even if you sign up partway during the season, that's fine as well, because you can win a fantastic range of both weekly and seasonal prizes as well. So to get started, simply download the app or visit GameDay Squad, the GameDay Squad website. You can create an account. And if you enter the promo code FBRL25, as you can see on screen there, you'll be rewarded with 3 9-player common packs. So that's 27 cards that you can start using to build out your classic and your challenger and maybe even your champion squads as well. You'll also get a heap of bronze packs that you can start filling out your starter squad, and then you can start matching it with Dill and I. If you are like Dill and I and you want to open up even more packs, you can also add in our referral codes as well, and that'll give you a range of packs that you can open simply for doing so. So those codes are on screen, but for our audio listeners, they are 31Z, 92QY4, and 5N005JTO. So why wait when there's plenty of cash and pack prizes to be won each round of the NRL season? Sign up now to GameDay Squad and enjoy the fun. Now, if you've ever seen a Fantasy Bros video before, you know that we love giving away free stuff simply for tuning in and engaging with our content. And we've got 3 epic prizes that you can win between now and our pre-Vegas stream coming this Wednesday. As you can see on screen, we've got 3 9-player packs to give away. One of them's a unique pack, one of them's a rare pack, and one of them's a common pack. But these packs aren't just your normal run-of-the-mill packs. They're preloaded, full of the top 30 players we're covering during the preseason episodes. So don't worry, you won't be getting any Brandon Piakuras, Kieran Forans, or Blake Laurie cards. You'll be getting an assortment of GameDay Squad's best players. Dill, how are our viewers going to win these prizes?
Yeah, mate, those packs are chock full of some of the best. To enter, you need to simply watch the show, subscribe to our channel, and comment who your top 3 backs are for 2025. Do that for each of our positional shows, and that's up to 3 entries into that giveaway. And as Stu mentioned, we'll be doing that live giveaway on our first show come Wednesday next week, Wednesday the 26th. I'm really looking forward to that pre-Vegas show. It should be an absolute ripper. All right, mate, enough of the admin stuff. Let's rip straight into the top 10 backs for 2025. Look, in GameDay Squad, the makeup of the backs is slightly different to some of the other fantasy competitions you may have played before. So we've got 3 positions there for the backs. That is the centers, wingers, and fullbacks. You must play 2 centers, 2 wingers, and a fullback on field at all times. And then you can select any 2 from those 3 positions for your bench. So that's 7 backs in total that will contribute to your scoring side each and every week. And look, when we're focusing on our backs and we're selecting players, particularly on that bench, we're looking for players that touch the ball a lot. We're looking for players that rack up some big running meters. And we also tend to favor those backs for the higher performing clubs, those attacking sides, so that we can maximize those attacking points and then have limited demerits as well. I think that's really important. For those bench spots, we really load up on our fullbacks more often than not. They're some of our highest scoring positional players in Game Day Squad. So we try to maximize our score there through some potentially 3 elite fullbacks. Before we jump into the analysis of our top 10 backs and give you some of the best players, Stu, do you want to jump through some of the top performers of last season?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see here on screen, their fullbacks certainly have the biggest averages across those 3 positions. So there's no reason why you shouldn't be trying to plug 3 of those in, as Dill mentioned. The top centre for last season was Herbie Farnworth. He averaged a massive 55.88. Brian To'o averaged 53.93 as the top performing winger. But Latrell Mitchell, miles ahead there, averaging 67.62 at the back for the Rabbitohs. No doubt these players are set for another big season, and hopefully when Latrell Mitchell comes back from that injury. But let's take a look, Dill, who we think will dominate across those 3 backs positions. So Dill and I have made our consensus backs ranking for 2025. Dill, who are those top 10 through 6 players?
Yep. So looking at our top 10 to 6, at 10, we've gone Ruben Garrick. At 9, Herbie Farnworth. 8, we've gone Zach Lomax. 7 is Brian To'o, and Teddy comes in at number 6. So obviously there, we've got a combination of a few centers, a couple of wingers, and then our first fullback. And it's no surprise that majority of our top 10s will be fullbacks, which we'll get to in a moment. In terms of our number 10 player, look, it is Ruben Garrick, and he's... he finished 6th of all centres based on GDS average in 2024. So I feel like that might be a little bit deceiving, though. You can put a line through a number of his 22 games that he played. Garrick actually left the field 3 times across the season due to head knocks. He seemed to get himself into trouble quite a bit through the head knock. So if we take out those 3 games, he averaged... That average of 45 is probably a little bit misleading. You take out those 3 games, he averaged closer to 30 in base across the remaining 19 games where he played majority of the minutes. And he then kicked on from that with an average of 3.2 tackle breaks per game and over 3.5 goals per game. So his average is probably closer to something like 50, really, when you consider those 3 games where he had limited minutes. I think one game he was on the field for about 3 minutes or so before he took that head knock there. So I think really he contributes to his team really well in an attacking side. We've that team quite a lot, and particularly that right edge and how dangerous they can be. And I feel he's really got an opportunity to increase that scoring, increase that output. And as we talk about quite a lot, he's obviously got the goal kicking duties. So that's just gold on top of what will hopefully be a massive attacking season for Garrick.
Yeah, that's right, mate. I think he might go under the radar given that average of 45.7. The fact that some coaches might think, oh, he's on a downward trend, or he didn't go so well last season, so they might look elsewhere. But yeah, he had a 3-minute game and a couple of matches under 30 minutes on the field as well. So that obviously really impacts those average run meters and tackle breaks and that sort of thing as well. So you've hit the nail on the head. I think he'll definitely get closer back to 50. That was his average in 2023. What I also like is the fact that he's had a full year now playing in that right centre position outside of DCE and Haumole Olakuatu, and that just is an unreal edge and one of the best in the competition. So with a full season and transitioning from the wing, had a couple of spells at fullback and that sort of thing, he should be probably a little bit more ready to take on that position and even go forward in terms of his ability on the field and the average that he scores. So I can definitely see an average much closer to 50. And if he went beyond 50, then I wouldn't be surprised at all. We know how good Manly is as an attacking outfit. And as a kicker, he just always cashes in when he puts boot to ball. Mate, at number 9, we've gone the top scoring centre from last season and our highest ranked centre again for this season, and that's Herbie Farnworth. What a weapon he was last season with the Dolphins. We knew how good he was at the Broncos, but he absolutely excelled in 2024, averaging 55.88, which we said topped that centre position. In the wing position, he would have topped that as well. And in the fullback position, he would have been the 7th best fullback. So you're going to see a lot of fullbacks in our top 5, but he would have been 7th out of that lot. And he was also averaging higher than blokes like Walsh and Drinkwater, who we'll have in our top 5 a little bit later on. So, look, I'm not sure he can do exactly what he did last season. I expect maybe a little bit of regression, but he's shown how good his ceiling can be. And he actually even started with 6 scores of 30 and 40 to start the season. And that means he finished the season absolutely incredibly well. So, there is a small chance that he can even go beyond that average because of how well he finished the season and how poorly he started it. But we might even have him too low on these rankings come season's end. But I think it's probably all but a guarantee that he'll finish that number 1 center once again.
Yeah, and I think that the key for me is that the time that he's got in the team. He had a full season with them last season. There's not too many changes there over at the Dolphins. They've been pretty consistent there. Some minor changes, but I think that it's going to be that chemistry with the rest of the team that I think Herbie's going to be really good with. The other thing I like is he averaged 30 points in base across all of his games last season, and then he added onto that 5 tackle breaks per game. So if you're looking at points from those kind of stats, then you got to be pretty happy with that, on top of then potential try scoring ability and his offload ability as well. I think is probably underrated. So I think that's some real positives there. So yeah, I'm really keen to see Herbie back up that really good year, and hopefully he can kick on and again be the top scoring center like we think he will be. Onto our 8th position, our 8th rank, and that is Zach Lomax. And you could probably say that Lomax had probably something of a breakout season last season. We obviously saw him get that Origin call up because of his unreal performances across over at the Dragons. He's moving now over to the Eels, and they've got some new personnel over there and a new head coach. So he should line up on the wing, although we did see him lining up at centre for their trial game. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there with that final positioning. Look, last season he had success there on the wing, 14 tries and 50 offloads. So he's certainly got that ability. He kicks goals as well, which is absolute gold. He kicked 63 goals last season for the Dragons, who found themselves actually in the bottom 5 for tries scored. We go across to the Eels. They scored an extra 12 tries last year. So that's an extra 12 opportunities that he could be scoring GDS points. So I think that's massive. If the Eels are, they've got a big season ahead of them. They've got some really good young guns. They've got quite a few new players. And I think if they can put together a really good season like we kind of expect, I think Lomax is going to be a massive part of that.
Yeah, that trial that happened on Friday night didn't really give us too many positive signs. Lomax, was a little bit underused in terms of ball on hands. He obviously did a lot of work out of his own half. He just loves getting his hands on the ball and doing the hard stuff. But with an attacking edge without Mitch Moses meant the ball wasn't really going right all too often. So, look, if you didn't like what Lomax did in the trial on Friday night, then you wouldn't want to discard him entirely, because that team's going to look quite different, particularly when Moses is back there running the show and demanding a lot of ball on the right-hand side. Moses only played 7 games last year, and they still scored 12 tries more than the Dragons and a total of 60 extra points as well. So if Moses plays a full season, you'd expect their attack to increase as well, meaning the points scored would be far more than the 60 that they actually scored last season against the Dragons, meaning Lomax, is going to have far more opportunities, both finding the line, but also with the kicking tee as well. And I think that's all but been confirmed, that Moses actually won the goal kicking shootout at training, but then handed the tee over to Lomax. And I think he was just happy to focus on his own game and organising the team. And when someone is so good like Lomax outside him anyway, he's pretty happy to give that tee up, and that should allow him to play a little bit more freely as well. What I really like about Lomax here as well, even if he is playing in the centre, it just means that he might have an opportunity to break some more tackles, set up some more tries. And look, he was chasing a lot of kicks and scoring a lot of tries in that way as well. So centre's not going to change that. If anything, he might be able to get to the ball a little bit sooner, or be a little bit closer to some of the action as well. So if we do see him lined up in centre for the Eels, I'll probably still play him quite frequently, and only look to replace him with someone else if if his performance warrants it, if he's not getting enough attacking opportunity or that right edge isn't really combining as it probably should be early on in the season. But yeah, for me, a pretty good lock, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn out in sky blue again. At number 7, we've got our top-ranked winger in Brian To'o, and he only just out-averaged Zach Lomax last year with a 53.93. But despite just edging out Lomax last year, he only scored 12 tries, and these came in 8 matches, which I found really interesting, meaning he scored a lot of his tries in clumps, but he went so many games without finding the line. So I'm really hoping he lines up on the right wing. I think it's trending that way. I think Isaiah Papali'i mentioned in an interview that he was working really closely with the left side of Paul Alamotti, being on the wing on that side. So that all but confirms Brian To'o on the right. And that just means he's in a position that's probably the best type of real estate in the competition. A couple of spots outside Nathan Cleary. Cleary's got to demand far more ball this season with no Jerome Luai, which means the ball's going to be passed to that right wing far more often. Cleary will be kicking to that wing far more often as well. And we know how damaging Dylan Edwards is on that side of the field as well. So I think this is all but a slam dunk play, and there's no way that Bizza won't score more than those 12 tries last year, provided he stays healthy. So he's such a base machine as well. He breaks about 6 tackles a game. He runs 180 meters, but some of those games he tops well over 200, 240 meters. But I think there's some absolute huge upside being on that right wing outside Cleary. Let's just hope Cleary can stay fit, because Biz is going to cash in if he does.
Yeah, and that's probably the key for me, is that connection with Cleary. Last season, To'o's stats really took a hit whenever Cleary wasn't on the field. To'o averaged more tries, more meters, more tackle breaks, and more offloads when he played with Cleary last season. So that's obviously, his big game is based around his try-scoring ability, the meters that he makes, and those tackle breaks, as you mentioned. And we probably can't talk about To'o without talking about that round 8 game against the Cowboys. 227 meters gained, 2 line breaks, 1 try, and wait for it, 21 tackle breaks. 21 tackle breaks is absolutely unreal. And if he can even get half of that across his games this season, I think we're in for a massive one from Brian To'o. And as you say, it's all going to be about whether Cleary can stay healthy and whether he can feed To'o some unreal ball and give him some time and space. Alrighty, on to our first fullback. This is our number 6 rank back in our top 10, and it is that man, James Tedesco. And that's another player who we probably weren't overly keen on last season. We sort of were a bit down on Teddy, and he absolutely turned back the clock and was an absolute beast throughout last season. His impressive average of almost 64 points came about mostly due to those 200 run meters per game, a massive 7 tackle breaks per game. I thought that was really surprising, and that I didn't really feel like he broke that many tackles, but then going back 7 per game is huge for your fullback. He also had a 3-game run in the middle of the season where he broke 13 tackles, 11 tackles, and 13 tackles in a row in those 3 games. That's a combined 100 or over 100 GDS points from tackle breaks alone across those 3 games. So that's massive. And that really just helps that GDS score. And that's the ceiling that we've got, I guess, for Teddy, that ability to break tackles. Plus, he had over 1 try assist per game, 1 line break assist per game, and 1 line break himself per game. So the attacking stats were endless for James Tedesco. The question obviously remains, can he replicate that performance a year later? There's a lot of changes at the Roosters. It could go either way. I think there's opportunity for him to really step up and take lead of this new look, this new makeup team. But then there's also that opportunity where maybe they take a step back because they need some time to gel and build some relationships there. So it'll be interesting to watch. And I think either way, he's still going to end up somewhere in the top 10. It'll just be where and how high he can get, probably.
Yeah, that season last year certainly surprised many, and just showed why he's such a worthy ambassador of the GameDay Squad platform. That's a really exciting partnership that they've now developed with him as well. But look, I was one of those people that wrote him off last season, but looking at his numbers, he was on a downward trend in terms of his GameDay Squad scoring since 2020. And so that massive season sort of came from nowhere. But I think a bit of it might have to do with the fact that he wasn't named in the New South Wales squad, and there was already some whispers about that occurring, early on in the season and looking to change the guard and that sort of thing. So maybe he just decided that he's going to prove a couple of people wrong and just show how damaging he can be, turning that clock back. And he's not allergic to a run or a tackle break, is he? He sort of does that little crab across the field. He'll palm a couple of blokes off and then slice through a bit of a gap, and another bloke will fall off him. So he can get 2 or 3 tackle breaks in every couple of runs, and those points obviously add up, just like we mentioned with Bizzer earlier. He is now 32, so his body's taken an absolute toll. He's had a number of injuries throughout his career. So look, you're right. I think he'll definitely still be around the top 10 there, and maybe even the top 5 in terms of fullbacks. But I just don't think he can repeat last season. That was just incredible. But if he does, good on him. And if he doesn't make that Sky Blue side again, he'll be even more valuable for Game Day Squad, because we'll get to play him far more frequently, particularly during that Origin season, which is really tough when there are a lot of big names out and we don't know who's going to back up or if they're going to get the full 80 minutes. But if he's not there, he's an absolute lock and load. And if you could captain in Game Day Squad, he's an automatic captain, because he'll probably top a lot of those weeks. So yeah, Teddy, awesome during the mid rounds of the season, I think, but maybe just a wait and see how the Roosters team pan out in the early rounds. Mate, on to our top 5. As we can see here, it's absolutely littered with fullbacks, hence the fact that we know fullbacks score a lot better than the other positions in the back line. So we've got Dylan Edwards at number 5, Reece Walsh at number 4, Latrell Mitchell number 3, Kalen Ponga at 2, and our consensus number 1 ranked fullback, we've got Tommy Turbo, having a massive year this season. Dill, I'll start with Dylan Edwards. He had a really impressively consistent season last year, and that obviously rewarded him with that Sky Blue and Kangaroos jersey, and that meant that that Teddy couldn't find a spot in that team. But I still think his average of 64.91 was a little bit inflated due to a lot of goal kicking, particularly when Nathan Cleary was out. And that added about 9 points of value across 11 games. So the more healthy Cleary is, the more games that Cleary plays, the less opportunity Dylan Edwards has to kick goals. Obviously, if Cleary is out, then we can expect another sort of 9-ish points of average coming off his boot because of the goal kicking. But for the most part, yeah, that 64 probably looks a little bit inflated. In saying that, he just does so many things well. He's a bit like Brian To'o, where he just takes so many runs and is able to break so many tackles. But he's obviously got the attacking upside, sweeping out the back of Cleary. And he pops up on all the right times on the right-hand side to either score himself or draw and pass to a centre or a cut out to the winger. But he's also really good at finding some holes through the middle with some tired defenders sort of at either side of half-time, even in his own half, and then he can draw and pass to a speed man backing up on his inside. So, yeah, his position in the New South Wales team was certainly warranted last season, but still in the top 5 for me, but probably not going to reach those same heights unless for a long-term injury to Cleary.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how much he does get the ball in his hands, now with Luai moving on and that potential for a seasoned playmaker to step up in that side as well. So it'll be really interesting to keep an eye on that. The thing I like about Edwards is, across most of the fullbacks, he averaged less penalties and less errors per game than any of the fullbacks, which is really important. In Game Day Squad, if there's an error or a drop ball or a penalty conceded, you're going to lose points for your player. So he averaged 0.2 penalties per game, and then less than 1 error per game as well. He also had a better tackle efficiency than most other fullbacks. He only was missing 1 tackle for every 5 last season. So again, that's an opportunity there to save some points. So I think that probably contributed a little bit to that average as well. But for me, yeah, it's going to be that sort of connection that he has with the rest of the team in terms of that attacking and see where we go from there. And you obviously lose him for a number of games throughout the middle of the season. So there might be an opportunity there if you are playing Edwards, that might be an easy swap over to someone like Tedesco in that middle period. On to our number 4, and it is Reece Walsh from the Broncos. And it's another fullback in this list who didn't play a full complement of games in 2024. As you can see, a lot of our fullbacks there didn't really get through many games. And I guess Reece Walsh, a combination of injury plus the rep duties as well. But we know what Walsh has to offer in attack. He's got that ability to break tackles. He broke 4.5 per game last season. He can make line breaks, and he made 1 per game last season, and then score tries as well, which was actually 1 per game, which is huge from the fullback perspective. The big improvement I want to see from Walsh is the complete opposite of Edwards, and that's the ability for Walsh to limit those demerits, limit those negative scoring plays. Last season, he racked up 28 errors across his 14 games, as well as conceding 8 penalties and missing 20 tackles. So that averages about 13 points from every game that he loses from his overall score. So that's quite a lot, considering, he's still averaged 55.5. It could be so much higher if he was limiting some of those demerits. And I think at times it sort of looked like he was trying a little bit too hard on the end of a play, sweeping around and trying to do a little bit too much. So I kind of hope he, takes a step back, and Madge sort of says to him, look, just back yourself, back your running game, get the ball in hand and have a couple of cracks first before you start looking to pass and make some crazy plays. So, yeah, for me, that's what I really want out of Reece Walsh is those limits and demerits.
Yeah, spot on. I think Madge will definitely instill a bit of discipline in his game and for a lot of the team as well. So I still think there'll be plenty of highlights from Reece Walsh this season. But yeah, you're right. Probably a little bit more cool and calm under pressure, and not trying to throw that miracle long ball when he's under a lot of pressure, and same with the teammates outside him. But maybe just tucking that ball under the wing and getting tackled, but getting up and playing the ball and allowing the attack to continue. So his 7th placed in average across fullbacks last season, and only averaging 55.5. Still included a 4-minute match where he suffered that facial fracture and didn't return to the game. So just with that alone, the average there is already misleading. But yeah, those double digits in demerits really stacks up, doesn't it? If he, only had half of those demerits, then that average is well over 60, and he probably comes into more of a peak in terms of his ability and performance this season, where he's had that extra year, another year of fitness. The boys are really good up front now. They've got a really good forward pack with Haas and Carrigan, hopefully playing some more games between them again this season. And I think Walsh is going to be able to back up those big boys through the middle and cause a lot of damage through the ruck. But we know how good he is just out of nothing when he has a kick return and he can slice through a gap. We also know his damaging speed on both sides of the field means he can easily get around a half or a centre and go through himself or put a winger into space and score some tries. So out of all of these backs, he's got really comparable upside, and his numbers in terms of that upside are really elite in comparison. So if he can drop some of those or reduce some of those demerits, and if he can cash in, without throwing the forward pass, if he tucks it and runs, that can result in that line break or a line break assist rather than the negative 3 or 4 points because of the error. So yeah, I can see plenty of upside, and I really think that he's probably going to be the biggest improver from this lot in 2025. That brings us into our top 3. Now, I had this guy probably 1 or 2 spots higher before the injury news during the week, and that's of course Latrell Mitchell. We've heard that he's suffered a hamstring strain, despite appearing and by all reports being super fit during the preseason under Wayne Bennett. But it's really heartbreaking, disappointing, not just for Latrell but for the Rabbitohs as well, who have a plethora of injuries. We're hearing that it might be about 6 to 8 weeks. And that's really going to impact that side. But also we can probably expect the next 2 to 4 matches, Latrell probably won't be fully fit till midway in the season. I've got a feeling he might put his hand up and say, you don't have to select me for Origin. He's done that before. He might decide to just work on getting back into that Bunny squad and working really hard for them, particularly if they have a slow start to the season. So his average of 67.62 last year was just incredible. And he's such a competitor, and he just fights every single time he's on the field. His running upside is really great. He just loves a carry, but in the big difference between him and Reece Walsh is that he'll make the right option more often than not. He'll go himself. He'll offload when he's falling to ground. He'll throw a cutout pass or a little kick in behind. He's just got a range of skills that are just so good for accumulating fantasy points in GameDay Squad. He was also sin binned 3 times in his 11 times he took the field last season. So that tells us two things. He is capable of a bit of a brain fade, but it also means that he was playing, a lot less than 80 minutes during those games as well, and having even more demerits being off the field and suffering those sin bin points. I think under Wayne Bennett, he's going to instill a lot of discipline in his game as well, and they'll probably look at those 3 sin bins and see how much of an impact that causes the rest of the team when he's not on the field, not just for his attack, but his leadership and his toughness as well. So, I expect him to clean up that part of his game. I think he'll take a bit of a while to get going after returning from that injury. And if it wasn't for that injury, I would have said that he was my my Dally M shout for the year.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, and I agree. I did have him as my number 1 ranked fullback up until that injury. You spoke about his ability to sort of lose his head a little bit, and I think that part of it for me was the big deciding factor. Wayne Bennett going there, he's going to have a really good influence on him. And the other thing that I really love about Mitchell, he can just break a game open from absolutely nothing. You can be looking at your GDS score and think, man, what has Latrell done? And then all of a sudden he's on 90 points, because he's made a couple of line breaks, a couple of tackle breaks. He's scored a try and he's set one up himself. So I think, he's a massive probably lost for the first, as you say, maybe even 10 weeks, 12 weeks of the season. But once he's fully fit, I think he'll be in my squad pretty much each and every week because of his upside, because of his ability to break tackles, because of his ability to run the ball hard at the line, because of his ability to set up tries. So I think for me, his attacking upside is just so much greater than a lot of these other backs that we've got. So I think, he'll be in my side most weeks once he's fit and healthy. And hopefully that is sooner rather than later. Alrighty, on to our second ranked back, and it is Kalen Ponga from the Knights. And in 2024, again, Kalen Ponga, he only played 15 games, so a little bit less again. We've obviously seen him play similar sort of numbers over the last couple of seasons, but he averaged 64 across those games, and it was off the back of his really high attacking upside. And it's something that we could just continue to say for each of these backs, each of these fullbacks, is that they've just got these massive attacking upside that we really want to jump on the back of and build our score through that. His average base was a little bit lower, which is, pretty consistent across most of our backs as well compared to some of the other positions. But he averaged 6 tackle breaks per game. That's 18 points in GDS per game. So on top of that, he averaged 1 try assist every 2 games. And then obviously the cherry on top of that is he kicks goals. He averaged 3 goals per game last season. So he's got a clear opportunity there that, he can go about his business with his run meters, his couple of tackles that he makes, and then just really pump up those attacking points, those attacking stats once there's a few tired boys around the park. He's obviously got an opportunity to increase the number of tries that he has in him as well. He only crossed the line 3 times in those 14 games. So if we can see a bit of an uptick there in his try scoring ability, I think he could be pushing for a clear number 1 spot in our top 10.
Yeah, and he only had 1 try up until round 26. He scored a double in round 26. So 1 try in the first 25 rounds is crazy to consider for a man of Kalen Ponga's attacking upside and someone who's still averaged 64. So he's obviously getting it done in a lot of other areas on the field. He scored 8 tries the year before. So, look, I wouldn't be surprised to see those numbers get a little bit higher, particularly since the Knights underperformed last season. They're not really expected to go well again this season. So, Kalen Ponga knows that he's the man getting paid a lot of money at that club. So not only does he have to play more than 15 games a season, but he's got to take a lot of responsibility with ball in hand, and hopefully he finds the line a little bit more. What I find really interesting is the disparity between the halves and Ponga's point scoring. So when he plays alongside Jack Cogger, with Cogger in the halves, his points soar. Cogger just likes to get early ball out to the dominant players like Ponga, and that's when we see an uptick in his average. With Jackson Hastings in the 7 jersey running the show, it really takes a massive dip. So for me, Ponga's inclusion in my squad to start the season is probably reliant in that name of someone who's in the number 7 jersey, and issuing a bit of a warning here for those listeners. If you do see Jackson Hastings in that 7 jersey, just be a little bit cautious about Kalen Ponga's output and have a look at how much less ball that he actually gets, unless they've gone through some massive strategy changes during the off season, and Hastings decides to play a little bit more favourably and get the ball to Ponga more often. But we're pretty sure Fletcher Sharp's going to be in that 6 jersey, and he's going to do a lot of running of the ball himself. So that 7, the player wearing the halfback jersey, simply just needs to be able to distribute the ball to Ponga nice and quickly, have a good kicking game themselves, and get the forwards around the park as well. So Ponga's the man here. He needs the ball as often as he can. And that average of 60 plus is probably certainly attainable again this season, particularly if he finds the try line more than just those 3 times in 2024. Mate, that leaves us with our consensus number 1 fullback and player in the back position for 2025, and that's of course Tommy Trbojevic. He only played 18 games, but surprisingly, that was the most out of all of those backs that we've got. Out of all of those fullbacks we've got in the top 5, so he's generally considered the guy, with glass hamstrings and injury prone. But when you look at those numbers, he was actually a lot better in terms of taking the field than the rest of those players. So he only actually managed 18 in the 2 seasons prior as well. So to me, that shows that he maybe is working on remaining a little bit healthier and doing the right rehab and training well in the off season to prevent those injuries. So doubling the output over the last 2 seasons is really good signs, not just for Turbo, but for Manly as well. As long as he's healthy, Manly are certainly going well. They score plenty of points each week, and he's generally involved in a lot of those points, whether it's sweeping down the left, making a break through the middle, and he's started to move a lot more right as well, which is the most damaging side of the field, obviously, with DCE, Olaquatu, and Garrick. He is prone to the odd error, making 1.7 a match last year, but he touches the ball so frequently that it's probably not much of a surprise. He runs for 190 meters a game. He averages almost a try a game, a try and try assist a game. He breaks 4.2 tackles. He's just got such a great floor, but he's capable of that monster 100 plus score. And if we look back to 2021, I know the game was a little bit different back then, but he cracked 150 game day squad points, and that's just incredible. So anyone who's got that sort of upside should be in your team almost every single week. And I think it's no surprise to a lot of people that we've got Tommy Trbojevic ranked there at number 1.
Yeah. Who would have thought Tommy made of glass Trbojevic would end up playing more games than Ponga, Mitchell, Walsh, and Edwards? That is crazy, but it's awesome to see. And as you say, it's built off the back of his just absolute dominance in that Manly side, and his ability to just be popping up everywhere in the field and demand the ball in his hands. The amount of times that you see the team a little bit flat and Turbo wants that ball in his hand to try and do something to pump the team up is really good. And as you said, look, 190 run meters per game and almost one try and 1 try assist per game. You got to be laughing with that. I guess the only downside for me is, which is a shame, but we'll live with it, is that he doesn't kick goals. That would just be the cherry on top, obviously. But I still think, without that, I think he will have a massive season, and I think he will be our number 1 ranked fullback as long as he can stay healthy and stay on the field for 18 plus games. If we can see 18 plus, I think we'll be pretty happy with Tommy.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Righto. So that's our top 10 consensus backs for season 2025. But Dill, how about we go through our top 10 ranks across those 3 positions? We know that there's going to be, that inevitable run of injuries. We've got buys, we've got origin, we've got people resting. So we're going to need to rely on plenty of depth across those 3 positions. And we're not just going to be able to plug and play those 10 blokes that we've mentioned in the previous list. So Dill, can you rattle through the top 10 centers that we've got? And how about let us know about one of those players on the list that you're most excited for in 2025?
Yep. So as you can see, our top 10 centers, we're kicking it off with Nick Meaney down at 10, Campbell Graham at 9, AJ Brimson coming in at 8, Gags at 7, RTS at 6, Iro at 5, Bradman Best at 4, Val Holmes, Ruben Garrick, and Farnworth making up our top 3. And for me, the one name on that list that I really am interested in is AJ Brimson. And we talked about him a little bit when we talked about the halves. But the key for me is that Brimson more than likely is going to play in the halves for the Titans, but you can get him at centre in GameDay Squad. He only played the 13 games last season and had an average of 38. So I don't know if a lot of coaches will be looking at him when they look to their centres. He's going to be quite down on that list in terms of that if you sort by average. But moving to the halves, I'm really excited to see how he goes there. And look, when playing in the halves last year, he averaged 35 GDS points in base, which is one of the highest for all centres. We talked about Farnworth only averaging 30 in base. So if we can get 35 points in base, plus the attacking upside of Brimson in the halves, I think that's going to be just absolute gold. He also increased his tackle break average in the halves. Last season, he was averaging 3 per game in any other position. He moved to the halves and he averaged 6 per game. So again, another really good opportunity there. And I think if the Titans go well, it's going to be due to their fresh look spine. And I think Brimson's going to be a massive part of that.
Yeah, so that base playing in the halves is almost what he averages, across all points playing the centers. So it's a no-brainer there that if we do see him with the 6 or the 7 on his back, then he's definitely should be coming into consideration for that center position. I think the Titans are going to be really exciting this year. I think they'll let in a lot of points, but that means they'll be chasing plenty of games and there should be plenty of attack. And I think him, Campbell, Kinney, are really going to cash in and have some big performances. So I really like that shout, mate. And I think you've let the cat out of the bag there. I think a few people are going to cotton on to that pretty quickly. All right, in terms of the top 10 wingers, we've got a bit of a flyer there at number 10 and Will Warbrick at 9, Alex Johnson, 8 Taruva, Mulatalo at 7, Jermaine Azarko at 6, Greg Marju at 5. We've heard that there's a bit of an injury concern with Kiraz, so he's dropped down a little bit, but it's probably not going to be too bad of an injury, but still probably one that he might have to manage throughout the season. So, his work rate might take a bit of a dive there as a result, but something to keep an eye on anyway. And then our top 3 wingers, we've got Dom Young, Zachy Lomax, and Brian To'o. My interesting player there is at 5, Greggy Marju, and I think I was a little bit higher maybe on him than you and probably a lot of others in the fantasy space as well, and that's probably because we're looking at his last season's average of just 41 points. So by his standards, that's super underwhelming, particularly since you look at his previous season's average, which was 60. I really think that he'll have a big bounce back this year, and I'm not saying he'll get back to 60 points a match, but 50 wouldn't surprise me at all. And that's on the proviso that he's got a healthy Bradman Best alongside him for a lot more matches this season. He only played 7 games alongside Best last year. And when Best wasn't in the team, his average took a 10-point hit compared to when Best was alongside him. So Bradman Best is so dynamic himself that when he forms that combination with Ponga and Dylan Lucas down the left, that the defense can't handle all 4 of them. So if Best isn't scoring points, he's flicking the ball out to Marju, or he's attracting that winger in to jam in on Best, and KP's throwing that nice cutout pass to Marju, who's strolling in untouched in the line. So Best just adds so much to that team that's going to help Marju find that try liner a little bit more often. He only scored the 7 times last year and 20 in 2023. So I'm expecting a big uptick there for Marju, and he'll probably find his way into our sides a little bit quicker than some might think.
Yeah, and I guess the key, as you said, it's all of those players around him, hey, that really make up that attacking side. We've talked about Ponga. We talked about what a massive season Best had last year, and you expect the same thing this year. You also talk about that player inside both of them, and Dylan Lucas, and we touched on him briefly in our top 10 forwards rankings as well. I think he's going to have a massive year. So I think that whole side of the field is going to dominate. And I think that, that might mean that someone like Dane Gago on the other side has a down year. And I don't have an issue with that at all, as long as Greg Marsh is going hard. And the other thing that's really cool to see is that someone pulled his legend in GameDay Squad earlier in the preseason. So that will be a huge card for that coach. And then we saw the other night as well, Bradman Best legend was pulled as well. So yeah, that's pretty dominant side of the field there. Alrighty, on to our fullbacks. We've obviously talked a lot about fullbacks in this, but here are our top 10 across the fullback position. At 9, we have Ryan Pappenhausen. At 10, we've got Ryan Pappenhausen. At 9, we've got Tabuai Fido. At 8, we've got Scotty Drinkwater. 7 is Keanu Kinney. And then our 6 through to 1 is those players that we've already spoken about: Tedesco, Edwards, Walsh, Mitchell, Ponga, and Turbo. The player that I'm really keen to see how they go this year is actually Scotty Drinkwater. And I feel like it's a bit of a poor Scotty Drinkwater last season, and probably across a few seasons now. I feel like he's often the forgotten fullback, and maybe in another lifetime he would have been an absolute Origin gun if it wasn't for some of those players above him on our top 10 list. But in 2024, he played every game possible, so he was healthy throughout the whole season. He had another stellar season. He was averaging 52 points, however, scoring the second most for all fullbacks. So that's obviously an important aspect of this fantasy competition as well. It's not just that you can change your squad every week, but it's also you want to have your healthy players playing those really important matchups as well. And again, he might be someone that we look to come those middle of the rounds when we've got all that rep duty happening throughout the middle rounds. As I said, he was the second most or the second highest scoring fullback. He scored 1,259 GDS points. He had the most try assists of any fullback as well with 25. So that's almost one per game from Scotty Drinkwater. There are a few changes at the Cowboys as well, which should see him probably pick up the kicking duties. Potentially, as we've talked about, that might add that cherry on top for drinking.
Yeah, I think that's the big watch, isn't it? Those kicking duties are probably going to have maybe a 7 to 10 point increase in his average, but obviously they lose a bit of a attacking punch there with Val Holmes moving on. Yeah, the 25 try assist was also replicated in 2023 as well. He's been the leader in that department for the last 2 seasons, and he's also gone up in terms of his line break assists and his tackle breaks. So we've always seen him as a bit more of a littler body. But his defense has improved a little bit, and he's breaking more tackles, so he's taking the line on a little bit more and running rather than that that pass before the line and getting a lot of the assist stats. He's getting more of the individual stats as well. So yeah, definitely a look for mine. And yeah, there's a number of names on that list outside of the top 6 that we spoke about in depth that. Any one of them, could have a really, really big season, and they could be the guys that we're trying to rush into our starting 3 fullback positions pretty quickly. So that just makes Game Day Squad so exciting when there are so many options, and there should be so many differences throughout the 3 that we're starting each week, which is really exciting to see. All right, Adil, that's it. That's a wrap. That's our pre-season content done and dusted. We've done our top 10 forwards, our top 10 halves, and our top 10 backs now. So make sure if you haven't already done so, you head back and you watch those previous 2 videos that we've uploaded onto our YouTube page. And make sure you also comment across all of those 3 videos as well to put yourself in the running for those 3 not to miss packs. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. And that'll get you into the running for that unique, rare and common pack, provided you've named your top 3 players across those 3 positions. Dill, thanks as always, mate. It's not long now. Hey, that pre-Vegas show on Wednesday is just around the corner. Thanks very much, mate.
Yep, thanks, Stu. And don't forget, viewers, that pre-season show, the pre-Vegas show on Wednesday, then also the massive Game Day Squad meet and greet with James Tedesco on the Thursday, and you might even get to see your favorite fantasy bros down there as well. We cannot wait. We are looking forward to that. Have a good one. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
See you guys.